Hi and welcome to this short video where we're going to take a look at two useful features for organizing your tracks and routing audio, which are folder tracks and group tracks, and the two sometimes get confused. So we're going to look at the differences between the two of them and how they are useful. So as you can see here, I've got 10 tracks of multi-track audio for a drum kit. No particular processing has been done to it so far. We're going to look at how you can organize this better. The first thing is folder tracks. Okay, so folder tracks allow you to firstly place tracks inside a folder. So to do all these, I'm just going to click on the first one, shift and click on the last one, right click here, and then go move selected tracks to new folder. And from there, just going to call it drums. First thing we can do with this is if we collapse this folder while all the tracks stay present and correct and we see a representation of the contents there, it means if we've got a lot of tracks in our project, once we've maybe temporarily finished editing on something, we can compress that track up and not take up so much space. So it allows us to organize things. So often in a lot of my projects I end up with maybe a drums folder, a basses folder, synths, guitars, effects channels, sound effects, etc. And then when I'm working on those, I can expand them, but then when I've finished with them, I can just close those up. They're still there, they still work, etc. And you can still see them and what's happening, but they take up a lot less space, and it saves having to zoom in and out on different tracks, etc. So it's quite useful for that. But another thing which is useful is these not only are organizational, they allow you to do things like duplicate, etc. So if I duplicate that folder track, we can see when we expand it, the parts inside have been duplicated. If I cut that there at that point, you can see they get cut and you can see that they are different. So we've got the first half and the second half, etc. And then I can move that across and so on. So it allows you to make edits to multiple parts really quickly. And if you turn this on, you get group editing, which quits any phase issues between tracks. So that's normally a good idea if you've got multi-track drums or any multi-track instruments, etc. Being done there. So that's folder tracks. Now group tracks are different. What a group track does is it allows you to route the audio through a separate channel where you can do some kind of processing. Now whether or not that processing is complicated or simple is obviously down to you, but we're just going to use a simple example here and give ourselves control of all of the drum tracks via one fader. Okay, so if we look at the mixer at the moment, we will see that we have all of our tracks along the bottom here, and what we want in the context of a mix where we would have maybe some other instruments happening, we want control of that separately. So what I'm going to do is just quickly create another track which is outside the folder but also is going to be separate in a group. So just going to have a bass all the way through here. So we just have a quick bit of that in there, and going to have that happening all the way through there. Nothing remotely interesting, just the same thing throughout the whole part. So there's my bass part, which is going to then move down an octave or two, and we'll just make it a little bit shorter. So it's the world's worst bass player, which I'm sure we've all seen before. Now, what we want is we want the ability to control the level of the drums while not controlling the level of the synth. Now, clearly you could click on them all and then move them up and down or use Q-Link, etc., but it would be a little long-winded. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a group channel. Now, previously in Cubase, you would have had to add a group channel track and then send them all individually by changing their outputs here, but we are going to do it much quicker than that and much better. So what we'll do is we're going to highlight all of these tracks. Again, click on the first one, shift and click on the last one, and then right click in this area here, and you can see we get the option add group channel to selected channels. So that means we not only create the group channel, but it also routes all of those channels to it, which saves a lot of work because here we'd have had to do the same job 10 times, which is boring. So we click that there. We can see we're going to get a stereo one, which is what we want because we want to be able to pan our drums, etc. And I'm going to call it drums there. And there we have it. So there's our drums group fader. Now when we press play that, fade that out. So there's that. And we can bring that up. And it's independent of our bass. Easy as that. Okay, so the thing to remember is that folder tracks, like here, allow you to organize and move the parts around, and group tracks allow you to process the audio. So generally, whenever you have an instrument which you've multi-mic'd, or you've got a group of instruments which belong together, you will probably end up using a group track for them as far as the mix is concerned, but also often in terms of organization, it makes sense to do that in terms of folders as well. But it's really important to remember that folders and groups aren't the same thing. So spend a bit of time playing around with them and you'll get it totally down, and it will make mixing all of your projects much, much quicker and easier. If you've enjoyed these videos and found them useful, then subscribe by clicking on the MTT logo in the bottom of the screen now. Also visit musictechtuition.com for tips, tricks and advice, as well as information about the books I've written, The Complete Guide to Music Technology using Cubase 9 and Music Tech A-Level using Cubase 9. These are a great resource whether you're just getting started or you've been working for a few years now. The information in them will allow you to take your sequencing, recording and production to the next level and give you a well-rounded grounding in all areas of music technology.